Yo, video editing JC here to jump right in and let you know that this video I filmed in isolation with COVID. My energy levels are really up and down throughout this video. I am currently on day 9 of isolation. I am shattered, I am tired, and so I just want to start off this video by saying it is still out there, folks, so look after yourself. Keep your distance, wash your hands, and wear a mask inside. Okay, let's do this video, shall we? Let's go!
Hey there, Poetry Pals! Welcome back to another video. This week, I am reviewing Cliff Notes by Kathryn O'Driscoll. I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro about Kathryn and her achievements in poetry, of which there are many. Then I'm going to do a quick introduction to the book, Cliff Notes. Look at that sheen. Then I'm going to run through the structure of the book. This is something that I think is very important in any poetry book. And so yeah, we're going to talk about that. Then I'm going to talk about my favourite bits. Then I'm going to talk about my not so favourite bits. Then I'm going to talk about my impressions of the book as a whole and whether I think you should buy it. But before we go any further, please make sure you like this video, comment down below what brought you here, and subscribe. Turn on notifications as well. It really helps small creators like me get found, and I put out regular videos about all things poetry. Join the club! Woo! And while we're on the subject, why don't you follow me on social media? I am at Josie Alford Poet on all the things. On Friday the 1st of April, I am hosting the Lyra Slam qualifiers, and it is for free online. So if you want to come and watch an online slam and see me doing what I do best, like arguably I think I host events very well, go ahead and click the link in the description to book your spot, and I will see you there. So let's talk about Kathryn. I'm gonna get her bio up because I don't want to miss anything. I want to be very open and honest about the fact that Kathryn is a friend of mine, but to be honest, any Bristol or Bath-based spoken word poet, as well as people who aren't based in those cities, will consider Kathryn a friend because she is one of the friendliest people I know. Kathryn O'Driscoll is a spoken word poet, writer, and activist from Bath. She talks openly about disabilities, mental health, LGBTQIA+ issues, and joys and gender politics in her wide range of poems. She needs to update her bio because she is no longer the current slam champion and a World Slam Finalist. So basically, last year she won the UK Slam, and so was the UK Slam champion, but that happened very recently. So she is former UK Slam champion, and she was a World Slam finalist. The current one is Elizabeth McGowan, and she has a book coming out soon too, so maybe I'll review that too. Aside from performing poetry across the Southwest, she's performed at the Edinburgh Fringe, at multiple UK national competitions, on BBC Radio Bristol, and was featured on the BAFTA-winning Sky Arts spoken word TV show Life and Rhymes. She has a first-class degree in creative writing from Bath University, and her debut collection is published by Verve Poetry Press in February 2022. She is the loudest cheerleader in the Southwest scene. By that I mean, if she is in the audience, you'll know about it because she will be a hootin' and a hollerin' for everyone. People say that it's between, like, I got so inspired by her that I also hoop and holler at events because I know that it makes me feel good that when I get off stage, someone's like, woo! And for everyone, that is Kathryn, and I just aspire to bring that energy as an audience member as well. She is also just an excellent builder of community. I think a lot of poets, she has been involved in the scene for quite a long time. She was involved when I first started coming to the scene in 2014. So she's been around for a while, and I think a lot of people will credit her as helping them feel part of the spoken word poetry community, particularly in Bath and Bristol. She is a wonderful human being, and she has also lived through some really difficult stuff that she talks about in her poetry, which brings us to Cliff Notes. As I said in her bio, this is her debut collection, and it is published by Verve Poetry Press. I've reviewed a few Verve Poetry Press books on this channel, and it's shiny. It deals with subjects like grief, trauma, mental health issues. So with that in mind, consider this your blanket content warning. I will be talking about the subject matter. I will be talking about this book, which involves talking about grief, sexual assault, suicidal ideation, amongst other things. So whilst I'm not going to be going into detail about any of these things, it is definitely worth knowing that if you don't want to hear about those things, come back to this video another time. That's okay. So let's get into this book, shall we? So first up, for a debut poetry collection, this has got some heft to it. Normally, like, a debut poetry collection will be more than 60 and less than 90 pages. I don't know why I've got that in my head, it just is, so it's quite long. So once you get past the contents page, the title page, before we start the actual poems, we have this, which is the content warning page. There are 2.5 pages of content warnings. The intro to the content warning page reads, "The following list is to help you navigate this collection safely. We have attempted to identify common themes, images, or subjects that have the potential to cause distress so that you can choose whether or not to engage with those poems based on your own understanding of your needs. The poems that may contain these triggers are listed in the brackets in order of their appearance within the collection." I have never seen this in a poetry collection before. I'm sure Kathryn is not the first, but she is the first that I've come across to have this list of content warnings at the beginning. I don't know how I feel about it. When I read this, it really put me on edge about reading the book because I was like, Jesus, this is going to be really heavy. Personally, there are only a few things that I find triggering from my own experiences and stuff like that. None of those are mentioned here. That's important to say. I mean, grief and stuff, I guess, but I'm happy to read about grief. This full list feels like a lot, but then again, I do not experience, I am not triggered by any of these things, so maybe it's okay. I would say that if you don't suffer from trauma or PTSD or whatever about any of these things, I would just skip it, because I ended up reading it going, oh Jesus, this is going to be really heavy. And then I got into the collection itself and it's an excellent collection. I mean, it's still very heavy, but yeah. Does that make sense? I don't know. Once we get into the main collection proper, I really enjoy the journey that we're taking on. Although I might say that enjoy is possibly not the right word. But first of all, we have the first poem, which is called The Theory of Relativity. And it ends with the question, how heavy could the sky be? And then we sort of go through, and it's almost like, how hard can it be? And then the rest of the collection answers, really fucking hard, let me show you. So we'd have a little bit about being in lockdown and stuff like that. And it takes us a couple of poems, but then we start learning about grief. And the grief specifically here is for the speaker's sister. Now, the poem that I have heard Kathryn do many times is Special, which she has performed in slams and stuff before. And we basically learn that Kathryn's sister was severely disabled, and the doctors said she wouldn't live long, but she did live, but then she died. And the first good chunk of the collection is all about her sister and, you know, living with a disabled sister and how that affects things, but then also dealing with the loss of that sister. And it's devastating and heartbreaking and also very beautiful. So from there, we sort of learn that the speaker is dealing with a lot of mental health issues from losing their sister, and we go forward and then we learn about the sexual assault. And we have a few poems very specifically about that, but then we move into the sort of PTSD of that and how you sort of like learn to live with that and the severe mental health issues that that has caused or worsened, or yes. And then we move into suicidal ideation. And it's sort of like we see this progression from, it feels chronological in a way, but thematically we move from the grief, then the trauma and the grief of losing a sister, then the like trauma of sexual assault, then the, you know, mental health, PTSD and suicidal ideation of that. And then we sort of get a, that's where I've been, here's where I'm at now, moving forward. But it doesn't try and give us a resolution. It doesn't give us a happy ending. It just gives us a continuation, a carrying on. So that's the rough structure of it. Again, there are some really heavy subjects in here, and you can use the content warning bit to work out which poems that you will need to avoid. So, let me talk about my favourite bits. Oh shit, I forgot to say another thing about the structure. Is throughout the collection we have pages like this, where the text is all laid over each other, and it is intrusive thoughts, and I think they're incredible. It's a really cool way of structuring the poem. And I think like it's also kind of great to see it as a progression of like the speaker's mental health and state of mind as we go through, because they slowly get more and more intense as we go through. But the first one comes just before my favourite poem of the whole collection, which is, oh no, I've got two favourites, but the first favourite poem is called Hired Mourner. And the intrusive thoughts, this is obviously in the bit where we're talking about losing her sister, and it says, all I am good for, here for, all I am for is remembering you. And I just really enjoy that intrusive thought moment, because it's very easy when you're in the midst of grief to believe that for the rest of your life, all you are going to be is grieving, nothing more. And I enjoy that. But Hired Mourner is brilliant. To the point where I read it to my husband and he enjoyed it too. And it is about it's a concept poem, which I enjoy. I enjoy a concept poem. And it is about someone being hired to go to funerals to cry. and it just goes so oddly specific, and I love it. I love it so much. It's brilliant. It's dark, but I think it's kind of funny. And I could also like picture my mind's eye Kathryn performing this with this really like forceful, positive thing. I don't know, beautiful. Yeah, so Reassurances is my favourite. Another favourite. I'm gonna show you the form. So basically, you have this one sentence at the top. If you are suffering, you should know that you can talk to me. And then you have, like, it cuts the different words out to get different phrases. And it's really good, and it's devastating. And it reminds me of so many conversations that I've been in, that I've been on both sides of as well. Love it. To zoom out, like, those are my two favourite poems, but to zoom out, my favourite things about this are there are certain poems that like partner together and they come really strong, and they're normally like poems on opposite pages, and they sort of converse with each other, and that's really beautiful. I also think that the structure of the poem is the structure of the collection is really good. I know that these poems have been written over years, and I know how many poems Kat has written, and I know that she has put a lot of work into structuring it, and you can tell it can be very easy with all of the intensity and the darkness that Kathryn writes about to feel overwhelmed. And to just feel, yeah, but like she's managed to make it feel like a journey through it. And I like that. So let's talk about my not so much favourites. There are a couple of poems in here that I don't feel like do the work. They aren't strong enough to be in here. Let me just show you the list. Down here is a list of all my favourite poems, and it keeps going into the next page. And my least favourite poems are just there. So there are some really, really strong poems throughout. But there are a couple that I feel like don't earn their place. This was a bit of feedback that someone gave me for my collection when I went to an editor to get it ready for submission. And they said about one of my poems that it does not do enough to earn its place in the collection. And I feel like there are a couple of poems here that do the same thing. There are two poems in here that I feel like don't earn their place as much, which is the Roses and the Sea. They're just very short, and I don't feel like they add anything other than sort of reinforcing points that have been made better in other poems.
Hey guys, Editing Josie here. I just want to quickly acknowledge that watching that clip back gave me the ick. I hate giving constructive feedback on Sorry, Kathryn, if you didn't like that bit of feedback. It's a review, that's what's supposed to happen. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that my battery died when I was halfway through filming this video, and what comes next is a very low energy Josie. I am still isolating with the vid now, and when I filmed this on filming day, I was feeling pretty high energy, and then when my battery died, I had to charge it, so I went and did some housework, and I was like, yeah, let's put the washing on, and then I sat down to film again, and everything, the fatigue was real. I have never experienced fatigue like it. I think the phrase of people who live with like chronic fatigue is spoons. And whilst I am don't have chronic thing. I was low on spoons, big time. So I apologise that the rest of the video is low energy. All right, let's carry on.
Let's finish off this video, shall we? The one poem that I absolutely hated, and I think we're supposed to hate it, so I'm not sure this is actually a things to be improved thing, but there is this poem called Warm Cheddar, and it is grim, and it's in the it's in the sexual assault section. We're in that part of the book, and a man is described like a sweaty piece of cheese, and it is grim. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that, but it's absolutely grim. It's disturbing. I hate it. Like, it's very much thanks, I hate it. And I can't decide whether that makes it a good or a bad poem, because obviously that's the point of the poem, and it is totally achieving that. If you've read it, let me know your opinion of that poem, because all I wrote next to it was just grim. The one thing I do want to go back to as a positive, because I'm not sure I said this, was there is a really interesting playing with form. There are some poems throughout this collection that really play with how a poem is presented on the page. The intrusive thoughts, whilst not poems in themselves, are a really interesting part of that, you know? And I think that's something that spoken word artists really bring, or can bring, to the page, is more experimenting with form and how a poem presents itself on the page. This is particularly true with what was that one? Reassurances. That's a really great example of that, with the cutouts, but also Silenced, which is what am I trying to say? She also plays with form in Silenced, which has different words cut out. And it's really interesting because obviously it leads it up to the reader to put in the words, like it's been censored or something. And it's on a really heavy subject. Like it's quite bleak, and it's heartbreaking to read, because quite a lot of the words from context, you know what they are, and you're like, oh no. But then I realised you could have some real fun with it and turn it into a fun game, and replace all of them with swear words. So I recommend if you're going to do that. In conclusion, I really like this book. I thought it was going to be a slog. No, I can't say that. Can I? Before I picked up the book, I was worried that it was going to be really heavy. And I was worried that I wasn't going to enjoy the process of reading the book. But I did. I think that I have a lot of poetry collections that deal with really horrific things. And a lot of the time, there can be an instinct to want to wrap those horrific experiences in metaphors, to like keep the reader and the writer at distance to what happened. And I think that there is something very powerful in grasping those things and saying them how they are, not shying away from it. And that's what this collection does, is it holds up these awful experiences and say, this is what happened. And whilst there is incredible imagery and metaphor, and honestly, like, I said this about Kanto and I say it about this one. Read this collection out loud. Kathryn is first and foremost a spoken word poet, like, and she is incredible at it. And I think to truly grasp the poems, you need to read them out loud to get the full effect of the sound patterning that she uses in them. And she uses incredible imagery and metaphor, but it doesn't distance you from the experience of those things. It takes you closer and says, this is how it feels. And so at some points, that can be a very uncomfortable experience to read. But I still recommend it. It is a tough read. It is not, however, a slog. And I recommend it. And the last couple of poems bring you hope. It just brings you not a light at the end of a tunnel, but just that you just carry on, you know. And these horrific experiences, they shape your life, and in ways that you could never have expected or ever want them to. But you're here now, and you've lived through these things, and they have shaped you, and now you just have to find a way of carrying on. And I kind of like it. I really like this collection. It's pretty. So yeah, you can buy this book from Kathryn's website or from the Verve Poetry Press website. That's where you're gonna do, your money's gonna go to the best places. Like, you're gonna, woo, that's where the poet's gonna make the most money off, so make sure you buy it from there. Do leave your reviews on Amazon and stuff like that as well. If you have read this book, let me know what you thought of it down below. If you've not read this book, let me know what you thought of my review. Does my review make you want to read it or not? I know the last part of this video has been extremely low energy. That is because I am low energy, but I wanted to get this video finished so I could get it out so I could tell you guys about this book. So that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure you like, as I said, comment down below with what you thought of the video, and subscribe. I make new videos every 2 weeks about all things poetry. Turn on notifications and do all of the sweet engagement things, because it really helps small creators like me get found. If you're thinking, gosh darn it, Josie, you're incredibly good looking and I would love to see... If you're thinking, wow, Josie, I would love to see more of you, then you can follow me on social media. I am at Josie Alford Poet on all the things. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by buying me a coffee or subscribing to my Patreon. Please do that. I don't tend to really heavily talk about this, but as a result of being in isolation, I have lost out on a lot of paid work. So please, if you're watching this, please buy me a coffee. Every little helps. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.